All right, it's time to talk basketball, off-season basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He is Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and also the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. The Shot Clock Pod was born out of content in Steve's 13 Rules, random NBA thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules, random NBA thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts as the exciting, always exciting and interesting NBA offseason begins. Now, if you're listening to this, we're grateful. Thank you. We want you to know that you're listening to one of the independent, fan-driven shows on the Peach Basket Podcast Network. We're not owned by a big media company, believe me, which means what you hear comes straight from real fans who live the game every day. No agenda, no requirement, just real fans. If you believe voices like this should be heard, the best way to support us is simple. Keep listening, tell a friend, comment, subscribe. When this episode ends, head over to the peachbasketpodcastnetwork.com. Check out more fan-run podcasts. Head over to thepeachbasket.net. Read some great articles by Steve and others, and help this independent network grow the way it started, organically, one hoops fan at a time. We're grateful that you are here. Steve, are you ready?
Ready.
Let's
I had to
go.
think about it.
Yeah, that wasn't an immediate response. It got me. Let's talk off-season basketball. Clock is ticking. All right. We'll start with the champs, right? The New York Knicks. They're high off of their ticker tape parade. It was pretty incredible. Star-studded event. Alicia Keys saying New York, things were crazy and fun to watch, honestly. But now the hard part begins, right? Setting up for that repeat, that potential repeat. You and I talked about it. We said that this championship, unlike the Thunders, unlike the Nuggets, doesn't, and neither one of those panned out in terms of a repeat, but we thought that was the beginning of a dynasty potentially. We don't think that about the Knicks. They've got a lot of work to do in the offseason. Run it down for us.
Well, first of all, the Knicks are, and deservedly, having a parade and doing all those nice things. 29 other teams are already starting their work and trying to figure out where they're going. So for them, they're hitting the major part of the season because the draft is coming up this week. For the Knicks, their owner, he's on a redemption tour right now because they won, and he's always been criticized. People want him to sell and all that, but he's on a redemption tour. But it's very silly remark saying he doesn't want to go into second apron. Now, I understand that. I understand not wanting to because it's very restrictive. However, by saying it, it tells a lot of people. I believe the Knicks are about 16 million or so away from going to the second apron. You got Mitchell Robinson will be a free agent. He's going to be close to 16, but if a team offers 17 million or 18 million, the Knicks have a little problem if Robinson's going to take the most money. Then that's not all. There's a couple other prominent players like Landry Shamet, who was outstanding in the offseason, in the playoffs. He's a free agent. He was making minimum salary. So there's people. Alvarado, who's got an option for $4.5 million, he might give the Knicks a break and say, sign me for 3 years at $3 million and I'll do it or whatever. But again, if he takes his option, that cuts into getting closer to the second apron. So the Knicks have to make some decisions. When Dolan says that, that tells a lot of teams, hey, if we pony up a little bit more, maybe $20 million for Mitch Robinson, we get him. Now, what do the Knicks do? They suddenly become a little bit weaker, obviously. Because Mitch Robinson does a lot of great things. He can offensive rebound. He can't shoot a foul shot, but he can rebound offensively, and he's a good defender. So, and he's a rim protector. So the Knicks need to make some decisions on that. And they also have a problem with Landry Shamet. Now, the Knicks are, like I said, are about 16 million away from the second apron. They've had, I believe, 8 or 9 guys signed for next year. If they go the norm and go for 14, which is what most teams have, that's 5 more guys. The minimum salary in the NBA is about $2 million, a little over 2. Do the math. 5 times a little over 2, and you're near 11 million. The Knicks have 16 million to play with. So unless they're going to trade one of their 5, there's not many ways out of this mess. Unless they decide, we are going to take a shot. We're going to go for it next year. We're going to pay up. If it doesn't win next year, And that would mean Dolan would have to change his mind very quickly.
Yeah. As we've said before, I'm a West Coast guy. I don't watch a lot of Knicks basketball. I don't know a lot about Dolan, but watching the parade and watching his speech, that's just a quirky dude, man. He's just
Yeah,
a quirky dude, and I say that for no other reason other than to say it. Let's go back to what you said, which is more important. The guys that you rattled off: Robinson, Shamet, Alvarado, and then another one you wrote about, Jordan Clarkson.
yeah,
All good players, no doubt, and all had a kind of hand in this. But these are fringe players. So I'm gonna put on my Knicks fans cap here. I think replacing players like that is going to be a heck of a lot easier than replacing a Karl Anthony Towns, right? It doesn't
of
sound like it's
course,
an impossible task, right?
of course. But Mitchell Robinson, first of all, Carl Anthony Towns is a good player. He's always in foul trouble. Mitch
Mhm.
Robinson kind of fills that need. And Mitch Robinson, you don't lose a lot. You lose a lot of offense when he comes in for Towns, but he does so many other things on the court that save you.
Yeah,
Now it's been exposed he can't shoot a foul shot, and teams will foul him if he's in there and the team's over the limit. So that's naturally a problem, and that might cost him some money. But even if the Knicks went out and got him back for $13 million, I'm using that number, they're still going to go over
yeah,
unless somebody goes from the core. And they're not going to trade one of those guys. Or Dolan decides, you know what, I was stupid saying that. We'll go over and we'll take our shot next year and then we'll deal
right,
with it.
right.
Those are the options. But what it does is for the East, every team that was in the playoffs or close starts thinking about they can be had, especially if
Yeah,
Robinson's not back and so on. And by the way, yeah, five guys are good, but unless you got Lou Gehrig on your team, guys miss a lot of games in today's NBA. So it's going to
yeah.
be a problem. It's the best way to look at it.
So now I'm wondering how many people that were born in the 2000s are Googling Lou Gehrig. It's Gehrig. Just if you guys
Should have
need to
said
look it
Cal
up.
Ripken. Should have said Cal
That would
Ripken.
help. That would help.
It's my mistake.
Sorry, that's funny. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on. But actually, before we move on, just a statement really. Is it realistic in this NBA to field a winning team, a team with an absolute chance of winning the championship and not be in the second apron? I just don't think it is anymore.
That's part of what the NBA has done to make it parity, to make parity. And obviously that was the plan. And that's what it's going to be. So, and I think the NBA naturally wants parity. You spread it around and let every team have a good year or two, and it all works nice. So I
Yeah,
think the second apron was created for that. But I think the shame of it is, and let's look at the Knicks. I think it's right that a team wins a title, they shouldn't have to cut money. And that's where they are. Because unless they go there. But the point being, that's not the way it should be. Because I think a lot of people, as the season progresses, will be saying, can they win it again? Can they win it again? And if you're
sure.
missing Mitchell Robinson or Landry Shamet also, logical people sit there saying, I don't think they can.
Yeah.
And especially if, let's say, Anunoby turns his ankle, which he does a lot. What do you do? And again, you have no bench. So yeah, they've got some problems
Yeah.
with that.
All right, let's leave the champs to enjoy their championship, but they've definitely got a little bit of work to do, and I'm sure, or at least I hope, that the execs got all this up in a whiteboard somewhere.
One,
Let's
one
go to the
more thing.
West.
One more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
One more thing.
Yeah,
Real quick. Just a real quick thing. Teams that win the title, they have trouble on the comeback. What people forget is everybody else is in the gym right now. Those guys are still in a party. Now
yeah,
they've played an extra 2 months. What
yeah,
happens is the shorter off season, injuries occur more often, and it's very
yeah,
difficult to get your mind back. Oh, we got to go through this regular season and all that other stuff again.
yeah,
So that's another deterrent why
yeah,
Oklahoma, why Denver, why Boston struggled to win a second title.
yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I heard the Lakers runs in the 80s, they talked about that. It adds so much wear and tear to your body. That's why it's so hard to
Can't believe
not
we
only
got
do
back to the
tape
Lakers.
and
Can't believe it.
I but I told you it was coming this time. I gave you a little heads up
Yeah, I know.
before we hit record.
Go ahead.
Let's stay in the West now, or actually pivot to the West, talk about the Spurs. Now, I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination that if the Spurs would have won, you and I'd be talking about a dynasty in the making. No doubt about it, I think, right? Because they're so young and so good. If they would have pulled it off, that's the conversation you and I'd be having. But they didn't win. But they're still looking really good. This is a very good team, but they do have some problems. You called out a couple of them. I want to focus in on one, and this is the Laker reference I was preparing you for. In San Antonio, the Spurs may have a Kobe Bryant problem. What I mean by that is Dillon Harper, you called this out, has said he doesn't like coming off the bench. Neither did Kobe Bryant at the start. Now, I'm not comparing Kobe to Dillon Harper, but they got that problem. How are they going to fix that? How are the Spurs going to get back to where they were this season?
Well, they want to go another year as is, and that means Harper's on the bench. He's got to stay there for 4 years, 3 more years by
Right.
contract. But the residual effects of him being angry might carry over, where he has to get out or whatever. The modern player, they're concerned about themselves and very little of anything else. And this is a situation that they've got to look at. And the other piece to that is De'Aaron Fox is obviously the guy that goes because he makes a lot of money and he really wasn't worth it in the
Sure.
playoffs. Right now, his market value is not high. They got to build some value up for him before they dump him, and that means he's got to play, and he's got to play well. So they're in a quandary. The other thing I wrote and I wanted to add, and it's very important, the smartest thing they can do is go out and get a legit four that is physical and will protect Wembanyama, like when the Knicks had Charles Oakley and
Yeah.
he protected Patrick Ewing. And there's two people out there. I don't know if Draymond Green would go unless Golden State throws in the towel and says we're going to dump. But
Interesting.
Isaiah Stewart is out there to be had, and Isaiah Stewart would be the perfect because instead of Wembanyama getting those fouls, those flagrant fouls, it would be Stewart protecting him. And people have to understand because Wembanyama is bigger and better than everybody, he's taking a beating every night. And if he's got a protector, and Isaiah Stewart probably is the toughest guy in the NBA, and that would be the savior to keep Wembanyama A on the court and B out of trouble. So
Yeah.
that would be an important piece to it.
Yeah, and it would give the NBA the two best nicknames in on one team with the Alien and Beef Stew. I just think that's a win
Yeah,
right there for all
yeah,
NBA fans everywhere. I love that. I'm gonna go back to Dillon Harper because that is a legitimate problem. You got to keep your best player happy. And Dillon Harper is not the best player, but he was the second best player on that team in terms of points per game.
yeah,
And I'm looking back again to Kobe. Kobe's first 2 years, he got into some arguments with Del Harris. I believe he made an All Star game coming off the bench. This guy wanted to start, had the resume to start. The Lakers wouldn't start him. He started 7 games his first 2 years, and he played 160 games, give or take. So the Lakers gave him some time. 17, 18-year-old kid too at that point. You said it before. It's a different era. It's a different makeup. Teams now and players now, it's different. Can the Spurs say to Dillon Harper, "No, you're coming off the bench," and survive that? That could be
I
problematic.
don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know his tie with the San Antonio area. I do know he grew up in New Jersey, and like most people, he probably grew up a Knicks fan that live in that area.
sure, right,
So there could be that whole pull. Let me go home. There's a lot of things now. Right now, the Knicks couldn't use him, but they can always use him. But they don't have. But in a couple of
right.
years, that could be another thing that weighs into it, and you don't want him to be upset. And if he's smart, he realizes if, as long as they pay him, he's in a great situation. Him and Castle and Wembanyama, what a big three that is. So who knows what goes on in his mind, though? And who
Yeah.
knows who he's hanging around with and all the other stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. The toughest job in the NBA is GM, and this is where they make their money, right? Right now is the start of it. This is where they make their money. You talked about the Spurs needed an enforcer. No need to rehash that. Again, I love the idea of beef stew. I think that'd be awesome. Let's go back to the East. You wrote that you're getting tired of the Giannis stuff, and there's always somebody at the start of the offseason who we know have been dangling for forever. And one of two things happen: the shoe drops, and there's a trade, and we get to dismantle it and talk about it, or nothing happens, and they're back with their team, and it's weird. I think it's a safe bet, and I want your thoughts. Obviously, that Giannis will get moved. It's just a question of where and why it's taking so long. What do you think?
I don't think his value is as high as the Bucks think it is. I
Mm,
think that's really simple, and I think they've got to do something by Tuesday or Wednesday by the draft. I believe that's Tuesday, because if they don't, they lose draft picks that they would get in the honest deal and push them 1 year further behind in the rebuilding. So it has to be done this week, or they got a problem. Unless they plan on offering him the big contract, he takes it and he stays with them. But I don't know if anybody's going to be happy with that. We saw what it looked like this year. So that's an issue. They could be trying to get Miami to go higher and offer more. That could be part of it, and right up until the draft, and then do that. Or I don't know. Boston supposedly with Jalen Brown. There's a
yeah,
lot out there. Now, to me, if you trade, and I go back again, being an old timer, I go back to when Wilt got traded from Philly to the Lakers. Obviously, Wilt is the best guy in the deal. And I believe Archie Clark, anyway, the players that were involved didn't compare to Wilt. You're not going to. And if
right.
Miami trades what they're offering, you're not getting anything comparable unless Khalil Ware turns into a star. You're not getting anything comparable. So I don't know. And you put those three guys on the Bucks that they're offering, and Yaquez and Hero and Khalil Ware. What does that do? Does that maybe put the Bucks at 30 wins? That's not enough even to get in the playoffs. So unless Ware really becomes
Right.
a better player than what we think, but it's just to me, you're in a bad spot, and unless somebody swoops in at the last minute. And to be honest with you, if Boston is offering Jalen Brown, I wouldn't give him anything else because you're taking
Yeah.
a risk on Giannis being hurt. Giannis is 2 years older than Brown. There's a lot of factors there. Yeah, Giannis is a better player, but he's got to be on the court. So Milwaukee thinks they have this tremendous trade chip. They don't. And they have a real good chip, but not a great one.
Yeah. And for the record, you nailed it. Will Chamberlain was traded in exchange for Daryl Imhoff, Archie Clark, and Jerry Chambers. All not household names.
Archie Clark was a pretty good player. He might have even made an All NBA team. I don't know if he did, but he was a good player. Darryl Imhoff was a journeyman center who started out with the Knicks, by the way. But yeah, they were not, the three of them don't compare. But
Yeah.
Wilt wanted out of Philly. He forced that
Yeah.
trade, and he
Yeah.
went to LA.
Yeah. The start of the player movement we enjoyed today. I've been following the topics that you hit, but I'm going to skip one because we talked about the Celtics and we talked about the possible trade, Jalen Brown and Giannis. I got to say, I'm used to the Boston Celtics being the franchise that you look up to, the franchise where things are crystal clear, the franchise that there's no muddiness, there's no murkiness, there's no confusion about who's running what. It's an orderly franchise. But right now, things are as clear in Boston as, or darn it, I messed up my segue. Things haven't been this muddy in Boston since the Boston Tea Party. I
Well,
worked hard on
you,
that one
you,
and then
you,
I butchered it.
you got to look at it. You got to look at it in a way. And I knew you'd get the knock in on Boston, but you got to look at it this: with Brown and Tatum and the people around him, if you work around the edges, they're not good enough to win it. So now you've got to sit there and say, okay, what can we do to push us to a level where we can win it? And by that means winning the East, but more important, beating one of those monsters in the West. So if you think about this, look, Brown and Tatum come back and they're in their prime, but
Yeah.
the rest of the team around them isn't nearly as good as a couple of years ago when they won the title. So you got to do something, and you got to figure this out, and you've got to make a step. If you don't go for it, Tatum and Brown get a year or two older, then they're on the downside. And then what? So it's either all or nothing. Push the chips in or you don't. And I don't necessarily agree with going for Giannis. I don't agree because of his health, but I understand what they're thinking. They have. It's either that or they deal Derrick White. Now, my feeling on Derrick White, I think he great Celtic, great player for Boston, the ultimate role player, does everything on the court. However, he shot 32.7% last year from three. Is that the beginning? He'll be 32 when the season starts. Is that the beginning? And Branch Rickey always said, you get rid of a guy a year before, that better than a year after. So my mind says maybe Derrick White, and you try to get enough back for him that'll push you to it. But Boston's going to do what Boston's going to do, and but they do. They want to win it. They've got to get better to win it.
Yeah. I And again, coming in as a West Coast guy, why has the team soured on Tatum and Brown? This is a team that just won. I get that you said the team around them isn't as good, but who cares? As if you can get that core that play really well together, see on court, off court, they won a championship for goodness sakes. Why are they soured on that duo?
Maybe out where you are, it's good to be the second best team. This is Boston. They always want to be the best.
Okay.
And if they come in and they lose in the finals, that's not a good year. So and right now the window's open with Tatum, as long as he's healthy. When you get somebody else with him, you have a fighting chance. So it's a little bit different the way they look at it. Some teams that have not been good are very happy to finish in fourth and maybe win a couple of games in the playoffs and so on. This is not the way they think. And the goal here is to get him back. Now, in a couple of years, Tatum's old, and if Brown's still around, they're old. Then you figure something out. But until then, you gotta do whatever you can to get better. In the playoffs, Kata, who had a great year, can't guard physical centers. So you got to fix that. Because if you're going to do this again, you're going to have the same result. So that's one of the many things that has to be fixed. You hope that some of the younger players get better with another year. But I don't see any Drew Holidays walking around. I don't see those kind of players around Boston. I don't see even Porzingis or Al Horford's walking around. So you're not as good. And or Luke Cornett. So you're not as good. You've got to do something unless you want to become the third seed and get knocked out in the second or third round. That's how Boston thinks.
All right. So they've soured on the duo in terms of feeling that they can win it again. They just don't think that they're enough to do it again.
I don't think they soured on him, and they would gladly do it. But they've got to get a better infrastructure around him, around them. They trade Brown and try to get deeper. Those are the choices.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes up. And the one other thing, too, the teams often do, Boston is a real good defensive team. When teams like this are getting older and they're still trying to get back into it, they'll make trades, but they'll lose their core. Boston's core is the defense. They don't want to lose that. So you don't want to go out, though, and get somebody. Giannis is a good defender. But you don't want to get somebody out there who's an offensive player that doesn't defend. Because now you're going backwards and you're compromising, trying to put pieces together to win. And I don't know if that's a good thing. The way Boston's built, then you're going to lose that. That's where a lot of teams fall apart.
Interesting. All right. No, that makes sense. Boston's got the 27th and the 40th overall pick. There have been some nuggets certainly at 27. It's a good spot. And it's
Well,
apparently a pretty deep draft. Yeah. Do you think they can get healthy there?
I think the bigger thing is, and I think this guy can be a star in a couple of years, is Ugo Gonzalez can
Hmm.
develop into something. And I think they've got to hope a guy like Shireman can develop and become a sixth or
Right.
seventh player. He's close to that, but he needs some work. He needs things that have to improve. Ugo just has to become a better offensive player. Defensively, he's a pest. So I think those two could develop into something. But we go back again to the big thing. There's no big. Kada is the only big, and he's not physical enough. That we can
Yeah.
keep talking about that all day, but that's where the problem lies.
Got it. All right. Fair enough. For more on this topic, no doubt, make sure to listen to Celtic Chalk Talk, which drops new episodes every Monday. Lots to talk about, and I'm sure all of these subjects will come up there. But that's it. Our time is up. You heard the shot clock go off. We had yet another shot clock violation. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules article where he dives deeper into John Morant rather, and Thiago Splitter, a guy that I enjoyed watching play, and he's got a head coaching opportunity in Chicago. Didn't get a chance to talk about that, but read about that. We'll link Steve's article wherever you are watching or listening to the show today. And join us next week for more random NBA thoughts on the Shot Clock Pod. All right. Thanks, Steve. We'll talk then.
Take care.